Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
I was born Israel Keys on January 7th, 1978 in Richmond, Utah. Just a regular name for a kid born in a small place before everything spiraled into what the world knows now.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
When I was about 5, my parents moved us from Utah up to the woods of Colville, Washington. We lived a very isolated lifestyle up there in Stevens County. My parents didn't believe in the government, public schools, or modern medicine. We lived off the grid without regular electricity or heat, completely cut off from mainstream society. Our neighbors were similarly minded, extreme survivalist types.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
Even though my family had roots in the Mormon Church before shifting to other fundamentalist beliefs, they named me Israel. In the religious circles my family floated into later, like the Christian Identity Church we sometimes attended, they used that name to symbolize themselves as the true chosen people. It wasn't a nickname, but it certainly carried a heavy weight from the day I was born.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was the second of 10 children, and because of how my parents viewed the system, none of us went to public school. I was completely homeschooled in our cabin in the woods. As a kid, I spent my time learning how to survive in the wilderness, hunting, tracking, and building things out of logs. By the time I was 16, I had even built my first complete log cabin in Stevens County.
Was there a specific moment when you realized you were fundamentally different from everyone else?
Growing up so isolated made it easy to hide the things developing inside my head. When you are raised believing the rest of the world is completely wrong and you are separate from it, it's a short step to realizing your own inner mind doesn't align with anyone else's rules at all.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
In 1998, I decided to join the U.S. Army. It seemed like a standard step to get out of the woods, and I served until 2001, eventually becoming a specialist in the 5th Infantry Regiment. But that military training refined my discipline, my patience, and my ability to plan operations meticulously. It took the survivalist skills I learned in the Washington woods and gave them a sharp, organized edge.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My early actions remained largely off the radar because I was careful. My first real criminal infractions that I later admitted to started around the late 1990s, including an assault on a young woman tubing down the Deschutes River in Oregon around 1997 or 1998. I let her go, and because of the lack of connection, there were no immediate law enforcement consequences. I learned early on that if you don't leave a trail, the law doesn't come looking.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It didn't happen until March 2012. For over a decade, I operated completely in the shadows across multiple states, but everything broke wide open after I was apprehended in Texas. When the FBI began connecting the dots between my life in Alaska, a ransom demand, and a missing coffee kiosk worker named Samantha Koenig, the media coverage turned into an absolute national frenzy.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
The public recognition only happened after I was caught, so fame didn't change my actions. The meticulous nature was already there. From 2001 onward, I was renting cars, driving thousands of miles across the United States, and robbing banks to fund my travels. It was a completely separate, highly organized, double life that was hidden behind my everyday job as a general contractor.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
My own instincts and a breakdown in my own rules are what failed me. I pride myself on being completely careful, but after taking Samantha Koenig in Anchorage, I used her debit card to withdraw cash while traveling through the southern United States. I slipped up by using that card in Arizona and Texas, giving law enforcement a digital trail to track my vehicle.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People are always shocked by the kill kits. Long before I ever chose a target, I would travel to random states, buy Home Depot buckets, and fill them with guns, ammunition, rope, cash, and Drano to accelerate decomposition. I buried these caches in secluded areas, like near Blake's Falls Reservoir in New York or Green River, Wyoming. I kept the exact coordinates entirely in my head, sometimes leaving them underground for years until I decided to return.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
During the intense interrogation sessions with the FBI and prosecutors in Anchorage, the pressure was about control. I was playing a high-stakes game of chess with the investigators, revealing tiny bits of information about my crimes, like the murders of Bill and Lorraine Currier in Vermont, only in exchange for specific conditions, trying to control how and when my story was let out.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
No rivalries. I didn't belong to a gang, and I didn't target specific adversaries. To me, law enforcement was just an obstacle to outsmart, and my victims were chosen completely at random, usually in areas far away from where I lived, to ensure there was absolutely no connection to define a pattern.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
While the public saw a quiet, self-employed contractor and a father living in Anchorage, privately, I was managing an extreme addiction to the thrill of the hunt. I was balancing the mundane details of running a construction business, traveling for legitimate jobs, and secretly planning cross-country bank robberies and abductions.
What was your darkest moment, and was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest moments were when the control slipped away. Sitting in that cell in Alaska after March 2012, knowing that the FBI was digging up my caches and piecing together my timeline, staring at the realization that my meticulously built wall of secrecy was completely crumbling.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
In my cell, the hardest thing to face was the complete loss of autonomy. I had spent my entire life operating completely on my own terms, answering to absolutely no one. Being locked down meant my time, my secrets, and my fate were being dictated by the state.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
The Texas Department of Public Safety pulled me over in Lufkin, Texas on March 13, 2012, using the tracking data from the stolen debit card. I was extradited back to Alaska and faced federal charges for kidnapping resulting in death. I confessed to multiple murders, bank robberies, and arson, but a final courtroom verdict never happened. On December 1, 2012, while awaiting my trial date at the Anchorage Correctional Complex, I took my own life in my cell.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you, and what part of your story has been exaggerated the most?
Because I told the FBI I had killed at least 11 people, the media and amateur sleuths started trying to link me to every unsolved disappearance in the country over a 10-year span. People exaggerate my reach, trying to turn me into a mythological boogeyman responsible for things I had absolutely nothing to do with.
What is the biggest misconception people have about your life?
The biggest misconception is that I must have left clues or a pattern. People want to find a theme or a specific type of victim to understand the motive. They don't want to accept that it was completely random, completely passionless, and driven purely by the logistical challenge of committing a crime and getting away with it.
What would surprise people most about your ordinary human side?
Probably how normal my day-to-day life looked to the people around me. I was a dependable contractor, I attended local events, and I was raising a daughter. I could transition from burying a bucket of weapons in the woods straight back to a normal family dinner without anyone noticing a single change in my demeanor.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I died on December 1, 2012, inside my cell at the Anchorage Correctional Complex in Alaska. The cause of death was suicide. I cut my wrists and used a rolled bedsheet to ensure I wouldn't be revived.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
It was my own flaw. I got overconfident. The digital world has eyes everywhere, and by using that debit card across state lines, I've violated my own strict rules of keeping my crimes completely analog and untraceable.
What past regrets did you carry with you to the end? If you could erase one decision from your life, would you? Or was it necessary to become who you were?
In the end, I left behind a complicated suicide note written in ink and blood, filled with poetry about the darkness of the world, but it didn't contain explicit apologies. My main regret was getting caught and allowing the system to take control over the final chapter of my life.
What scared you more? Getting caught, losing power, or being forgotten?
Losing power and control over my own destiny. That is exactly why I chose to end things in that cell, before the state could put me through a trial and decide my punishment for me.
When you look back now, do you see yourself as the villain, the hero, or something in between?
I never viewed myself through the lens of a conventional storybook hero or villain. I saw myself as someone entirely outside the traditional social contract, an independent operator who lived exactly how he chose to, completely indifferent to the world's morals.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
Just that people spend a lot of time looking for monsters in the shadows, expecting them to look different. But the real lesson of my story is that the darkest plans can be hidden right behind a perfectly normal, everyday smile.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.